Hey, it's Shan here. This week for episode 200 of Terrible Happy Talks, I speak with legendary skateboarder, artist and musician, Mr. Steve Caballero. Steve joins me from his home in California for a long conversation about his life so far. Obviously we talk about skateboarding, but Steve was also very willing and open to talking about some more sensitive aspects of his life. He talks about relationships. He was willing to talk about his marriage breakdowns, challenges with parenting, finding his faith in God and maintaining that faith, and much, much more. I was very grateful to have him on the show, and a shout out to Sid Tapia for hooking up this episode. I also want to take the opportunity to thank all those people over the last 200 episodes that have supported me in this podcast journey and assisted in various ways and continue to assist, even if it's just emotional support at times. Terrible Happy Talks is predominantly an audio-only podcast. However, every now and then I will record a full visual episode, as I've done this week with Steve. So I hope you enjoy it, and keep on listening, because I'm not stopping anytime soon. Just as Steve Caballero has no plans on stopping what he does anytime soon. The guy's almost 60 years old, he's in his late 50s, and still just charging, progressing, influencing, pushing, playing in his band, doing art, riding motocross, riding downhill mountain bikes, and living his best life. And he's a very inspirational human. He's also the designer of the legendary half cab shoe that has just got a life of its own, that shoe. And I've been using that shoe for over 20 years, and I'll probably continue to use it for another 20 years. So enjoy my episode with Mr. Steve Caballero, everybody. Cheers. Are you ready to go?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. It's funny. It's funny, man. I was looking at your Instagram the other day, and you put up a picture of you with a fully grazed back. You've got scabs all over your back, and I just had this moment of when is this guy going to slow down?
Shoot. I guess when my body says that it can't go no more. But as far as mentally, it's been challenging a little bit, because I feel like when it comes to anything, that 90% of who we are is mental. And then I think 10% is the physical part, because you have to truly, truly believe in yourself to be able to do anything before any kind of talent or ability can come into effect. And it's some people don't even know how talented they are because they're so afraid of discovering that talent that's hidden inside them. So first and foremost, it's basically the confidence and the believing of yourself. And once you get past you that and the insecurities, then you're able to be on your adventure of becoming who you want to be, not who you are made to be. Because I feel like God has really give us a platform to explore many avenues in life, and I think people just put themselves in their own little pigeonhole or small box that they create for themselves, when there's so much more out there for them that they have no clue about.
When did you adopt that acceptance of the importance of strong mentality? Was it when you discovered your faith?
No. It was probably just being a kid and just trying all these things and knowing that, if I believed in myself of being able to accomplish something, I may be able to achieve it. And sometimes, or the physical aspect of a person can limit themselves to who they want to be, as far as an athlete, in a special program, maybe basketball or football or tennis or running. Obviously some of the physique, it does play in part, but when there's a part where it's more of kind of a creative thing, I feel like it's an open book for anyone to participate.
I think
And
so.
I feel like skateboarding allowed me to express myself without worrying about my stature. That helped me discover the ability of hard work and patience and perseverance and dedication that you can accomplish a lot of things. So I feel like becoming a skateboarder really taught me about the world and how it works and how things don't come very easy in life and you have to fail to succeed, which is a really, really great avenue and a great personality trait to achieve is to learn that at a very young age is that you have to fail to succeed. So um, I've failed many times in my life, which has helped me become successful. And I feel like there's a lot of people who are afraid to fail. And once they understand that failure is just part of the process, then you can get over that and over that hurdle and on to the next adventure. And so
Mm.
I've applied that to art, applied that to skateboarding, to music, to riding dirt bikes, to now riding, you know, mountain bikes. And, unfortunately, last Tuesday, I went over the bars really hard and landed on my back. And my 58-year-old back doesn't handle it as good as my
58.
20-year-old
Wow.
back did.
Wow.
And so, you know, the the pain feels the same. It just lasts longer, and it's just more frustrating that, oh, it's going to take a couple more days or weeks to heal, but the mentality is still there. I still want to progress. I still want to discover my full potential. But, unfortunately, some of the things that I participate in are dangerous. And that's what makes me special, is the fact that I'm not afraid.
You're not afraid?
I'm not afraid.
Okay, it's a big call. How do you define success?
um, Having a goal set for yourself and completing it.
Okay.
It's not really a monetary thing. It's not even a size thing. It's having an idea, putting it on paper or mentally, and focusing and accomplishing a goal. And a skateboarder is a very successful person because when you're learning how to skate, you got to put a lot of work into things, and you got to learn how to figure out how your body works, the timing, and there's procedures, but there's also an element of danger as well. So you have to weigh the options. Am I willing to get hurt for this, or am I not? So that can slow the process down. But when you're not afraid of what can happen, I think you get to that goal quicker. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, you mentioned just stature just a little earlier then. Was that something you were always self-conscious of as a younger person, as a younger man?
Oh, totally. I've always been
Why?
self-conscious of my height because I'm a lot shorter than a lot of other people. I've always been conscious of the way my neck is because I was born that way, and people, that's the first thing that they would notice about me and then ask me what's wrong with me. So when people look at you and ask you what's wrong with you, that can give you a bit of self-conscious anxiety.
I could imagine because I'm a little guy. I'm quite a little guy as well. Always was.
Yeah,
And when I was as a child and teenager, that was actually it became a source of motivation
yeah.
to try harder because I sort of had something to prove, and that often that translated in a negative way. But
Yeah,
oh, you go.
I never been at the point where I needed to prove something. If anything, if I ever felt like needing to prove something, was when I very first got sponsored by Powell Peralta, and I wanted to prove um, my ability to be on the team and be wanted and be needed. My ability to be needed And so if I wanted to prove something, I would always try to do my best and perform and without complaining and just be a part of the opportunity that's been given to me. And I've never taken it for granted.
Yeah. If you don't mind me asking, I'm going to just make a comment here. You mentioned your neck,
Mm.
and it's funny. I've actually never I've watched you my whole life. Since I started skateboarding when I was 12 years old, and I feel like I think it's been such a huge contributor to your unique and mesmerizing style. Have you ever heard that? Have you ever heard that
No,
before?
for sure. For sure.
It's like cab. It's like cab steez.
Yeah. But when I'm not skating, I'm still like that. So it's like, they're like, oh, I
Okay.
didn't, I have people be like, oh, I never really noticed that about your neck. And I'm like, yeah, it's not like everyone else's. It's not perfect. But it tends to lean to one side because one of my glands grew longer than the other at birth,
Okay.
and so it was a birth defect. Which I'm not really sure if it really controlled my height. You know, but definitely, I've been short my whole life, so because of that, I've always looked younger as well because of the height. So when
Yeah.
that photo I posted of me and Tony, like I'm 15 or 16 in that photo, and I look like I'm 10.
I thought it was, I reshared that. I actually reshared that. It was on Tony's birthday, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
You were 15. No
yeah,
way.
yeah. So
What a gift.
yeah. So I've always looked a lot younger than I am. So it's definitely helped in my older age to look younger, than I am.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
How integral was your parents' raising of you to your self-worth and self-confidence as a kid?
Um, I learned my self confidence off the streets,
Not from your family?
not from my family.
Okay.
If anything, I think my mother gave me a lack of self confidence because um, she was a little bit more harder on me than my dad. My mom had a lot of expectations, especially when I started doing well in competition and everything. She would always expect that from me. And on my father, on the other side, never expected that from me. He was more about me having a great time and enjoying what I'm doing, and that was his focus. Um, my I come from a split family, so my dad left when I was 11 years old. So I grew up not hanging out with a dad or brothers or sisters um, as a young child. Same. So, and it's like even though I come from a big family, I feel like I'm still like an only child. Because I hung out by myself with my mother. My dad was off somewhere else. Um, but he was in contact with me, but he just wasn't around as a father figure. So I learned a lot off the streets. Um, but even though my father wasn't around, he still supported me any way that he could. He was always there for me if I ever needed a ride to the airport or anywhere. If he picked up from the airport from a trip, he was always there. He'd drop anything for me. Um, my mother was there for me as well, as far as like always providing a home for me, food, allowing me to build a ramp in the backyard after the skate park closed, and I think part of that was she just wanted to keep me home. So she wasn't going to say no,
I get it.
so I think she just was happy that she knew where I was. I was in the backyard, and if I wasn't in the backyard skating, I was in the house making noise with my punk band, The Faction, in 1982. So but I was around. I was home till I was about 22 years old.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So from
Yeah.
age 11 to age 22, I lived in San Jose at my mom's house, and once I left, I had enough money saved up in the bank to move out and buy my own house
Right, at 22.
at 22.
Yeah. Yeah, so because that's a question. I mean, you're obviously the longest serving professional skateboarder in the world, or one of, and you started your career so young,
Yeah.
and you were obviously I'm assuming you might have been making some good money early on. So I was
Very
kind of going to
fortunate.
ask you why would you want to stay at home that long?
Um, because I was comfortable being at home. I didn't have to really pay rent except for, you know, paying. Well, I was actually paying my mom's mortgage and her bills because I was making so much money back then. I could afford it. You know, like I was all total was about $500 total for everything at that house, and I was helping her pay for that. And but I was making thousands of dollars a month. At the point like so when I got sponsored by PAL in '79, I turned pro in 1980, got my board in '81, and I started making 300 to about $500 a month the first month, and then that was about '81, and by the time it got to around 1986, I was making 10 to $15,000 a month
In
in
86.
'86. So, in which in turn, I was able to save over $100,000 in the bank when I was 21 years old.
And then you bought a house outright.
I bought a house. Yeah, I moved out of my mom's garage and bought a house. So I was really frugal, and I didn't really want to flaunt the money I was making. I was more like saving it, put it in the bank because I don't know what it is, but I was always very satisfied with the things that I had, and I didn't need more, more, more. So that's what I think helped me become frugal and helped me, because I lived in the garage, which just was just on a mattress, and I didn't need a nice bed. I had a dresser drawer, a TV. I mean, I had everything that I needed. I just didn't need expensive things. I
You didn't want to ball out on a fancy car?
I did. Well, back then, I mean, I had a Porsche, which was a 914. They used to call it the poor man's Porsche because it was the cheapest Porsche you could buy. And I bought a used one, and I think I paid $3,500 for it outright. And that was a 1974 Porsche, but it was all paid for. So it's like here I am, like 18 years old. I'm driving a Porsche. You know, so
So you've ridden for PAL. You've ridden for PAL Peralta, now PAL, since 1979.
well, yeah. So 1979, I got on the Powell Peralta team. Around 1990,
Okay.
it turned into Powell Skateboards, and then years later, Stacy came back and it reintroduced Powell Peralta again. So,
Interesting. Amazing. What advice would you give to new up and coming professional skateboarders these days?
um, I guess it would depend on why you're pro. Because maybe some guys are pro because they're competitive. Some guys are pro because they put out great video parts. Some guys are pro maybe because they have a good graphic, a good shape. Well, all the shapes are the same now. Um, but my only advice would say is like it's easy to get to the top, but to maintain there is the most difficult thing. You know, it's one of the most difficult things because once you get to the top, then you want to party. And there's never a time to relax. You should never feel relaxed or comfortable. You should always push harder and harder because once you get um, comfortable, there's other people underneath you wanting to have the same things that you have, and there's only so much room at the top and so much of the pie that you can cut for everybody. And if you want to keep having that piece of the pie, you have to stand out and you have to keep reinventing yourself and doing things that are going to make you set yourself apart from the next person who wants the same things that you do. So I always believe that hard work and dedication and not letting a distraction come into your life will help you reach that goal. And the most obvious things that I know that are distractions are drugs, um, alcohol, and I could say women as well. They're a huge distraction, because they need attention. It's very rare that you're around a woman that doesn't need attention. And if you want to be a good drunk, alcohol needs attention. If you want to be a good drug addict, The drugs need attention. So when you give them that attention, it takes away from other things that are, I would say, maybe a little important in your life if you want to have a career. If you don't want to have a career and you don't want to make a living and earn money, then give your attention to those things.
Interesting. Yeah, it's a bit of a paradox because that what got you there, you then it's the core of what got you there, and then people seem to turn away from it. I find you really interesting because you have really been involved in the punk music scene and loved that genre and that scene so much.
Yeah.
How have you then avoided getting caught up in the other aspects of it, like you mentioned, drugs and alcohol?
Just knowing what the end result is with all that,
Okay.
and knowing that,
Especially through the 80s and 90s.
yeah, I just know that, I mean, I'm not going to say I never drank. Um, I'm not going to say that I've never done a drug. I've smoked marijuana before. I've drank beer, but I also know that I didn't want to let that consume my life. And I know that once you enjoy something very much, you want to give all your time to it, and it can control you rather than you think that you're controlling that substance. It's controlling you. And so it's very hard for a human being to have that self-control. Like everyone always says like, oh, everything's okay in moderation. But the problem is that humans don't know how to moderate things. We're very incapable of moderating things because when we enjoy something so much, which food is a perfect example. Someone who's overweight, they don't know how to moderate eating. You know what I'm saying? So, but to tell them that, say like, you know what, food's not good for you. And they'd be like, why? And I'd look at their body. I'm like, because you don't know how to moderate how much to eat. You don't know how to moderate what to eat. So look at you. Look in the mirror. You're a perfect example that what you love is harming you in a way.
You think it's
making you
this self-gratification?
What's that?
You think it's this innate desire to self-gratify? Self-gratification.
No, totally. I mean, I'm suffering right now dentally because I love sugar and I loved candy when I was a kid, and now I'm paying tens and thousands of dollars to fix my teeth. Not cheap.
Interesting. No.
So all that candy I ate over the years and all that time of not brushing twice a day, now I'm forking out thousands and thousands of dollars to fix my teeth because I want to eat, because there's cavities and teeth are breaking, and it's just one of those things.
I mean, it just seems like it's part of the human condition to, want to do and fulfill these desires. I mean, in your opinion, like, how can we regulate that as weak human beings? Because it's not just food. Food's a good example. It's so many other things. It could be consumerism, shopping. Sex is an obvious one.
Obviously, yeah. I would say just self-awareness and having the ears to hear and the eyes to see, and to listen to someone who's speaking to you that you trust, because you're not going to listen to anybody that you don't trust. But if there's someone that you trust and love giving you some positive advice, helpful advice, it's one of those things where you have to sit back and go, do I want to listen to this person? Do I trust this person? Is this person giving me, good advice that's going to help me? Or do I just listen to myself, which I'm my own worst enemy? I think a lot of people are their own worst enemies because they listen to themselves, which they have no clue of what's going on, but they think that they do.
Right.
That's called pride.
Pride. You know what I find interesting when people go, oh, I'm just listening to my gut instinct. I think I've learned that I don't know if I can actually trust my gut instinct, because my gut instinct is always going to be self-serving.
Yeah.
And so now I'm in this funny space. Well, what do I do? Who do I trust?
We're born the selfish breed. It's just part of nature. And when you have your own kids and you see that firsthand, you sit back and go. And so for me, as a parent 3 times and seeing my kids grow up, I see that selfish nature. I saw it 3 times firsthand. And I'm like, whoa, okay, it is true. You know what the Bible
Right.
says about us being born selfish and having a selfish nature is true, because it's like, how did this little person that doesn't even see TV or know anything have this like ability to be like me, 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 me. I want. You know,
Mm.
uh, yeah.
And they'll even manipulate. They'll
Well,
become manipulative. They don't even know why. That it's
yeah,
insane.
yeah. So yeah, we're selfish in nature, and so once you understand that, then you have a self awareness of like, okay, I got to watch myself. You know, I got to watch my selfish nature and try to put that at bay, so I can be ahead of the curve and know that if I'm going down a certain path, that I can redirect myself and go down a much safer, more productive path. That in the end, I'll benefit. But because we're such short sighted human beings, we're not fortune tellers, we can't see the future, uh, things creep up on us very slowly until it's too late. You know, it's too late. And then so when you're getting the advice in the beginning, then you don't have to wait till it's too late. So I already knew at a very
So
young age
interesting.
that if I fell in love with, something I was curious with, that could have the ability to harm me. So that's why I never wanted to try these other drugs and things, because it's like, yeah, I don't want to try cocaine. I don't want to try heroin. I don't want to try acid, because what if I like it? What if that's something I really, really like, and I never wanted to go there and put it to the test. So that's what
So,
saved me was, so in that sense, fear, that fear was a healthy fear for me.
I just think it's so interesting you had that level of awareness, especially as a young person making loads of cash at a time when there was a lot of abundance in the 80s and 90s. And a bit earlier, like all through the 80s and 90s, I would have been so hard to resist. I don't think there's too many that could have resisted that curiosity and temptation.
Yeah, it's who you hang out with too, because a lot of pressure from the people that you hang out with the fear of fitting in. I think a lot of people get dragged into that as well. So they get
Okay.
dragged into it because they're a product of it. And so a lot of people that are bad or do bad things aren't necessarily because of bad people. I saw this on TV, which is pretty interesting. It's because they are a good person who did a bad thing, not that they're a bad person.
Ah,
You
yeah,
understand? So,
yeah.
and that's why I saw this on an interrogation where the guy was trying to get this guy to admit to his crime, or actually, it was a lady. It was a lady who did a horrible act of killing her own baby, and they were trying to make them trust, make her trust them, so she could really be honest of what she did. And so they were pumping her up, telling her, not trying to make her feel bad, trying to make her feel like she's loved and wanted, and make her realize that she's not a bad person. She just did a bad thing, which helped her be more comfortable of telling the truth, So,
Gotcha,
and
gotcha.
I feel like, you know, there's a lot of people that get caught up in doing bad things, that they don't really know that they're bad because they're a product of their environment, and the environment doesn't see it as bad, so they just go along with it. I mean, they don't
It's normal.
care. You know.
Yeah, wow. I just was going to ask you about fame. So, when you realized you were becoming famous all those years ago, and especially at the height of the Bones Brigade, I mean, it was so culturally influential to so many people across the world. At what point did you realize, hey, I have some influence here? And did you make a choice to conduct yourself appropriately because you knew you were having influence?
I have over the years, and I've always realized and heard the stigmata of famous people, famous
Stigmata.
actors, famous musicians, and I never wanted to be that person, you know. So even though becoming famous, I knew that I had a chance to act like those people who people assume that's how you're going to be. So, and I always was able to humble myself enough to know that I'm no different than anybody else. I still have the same struggles as everyone else. I still sin the same way as everybody else. I just have a talent, that people recognize, and that's what makes me stand out. But I still have a heart. I still have struggles. I still have needs and wants, and just like a normal person, I was a normal person before I became this person that people think that I'm not normal. That I'm like naturally gifted, or I got some God given talents, which I don't believe in. I don't believe God gives people talents, gives us ability to learn these talents, but I don't believe that God goes, oh, I'm naturally going to make you a skateboarder, you know. Oh, I'm naturally going to make you a musician. Or I'm naturally going to make you an artist. I'm going to naturally make you, you know, this and that. I feel that He gives us the opportunity to discover our full potential and in what we focus on. Like, there may be something in this world that I have no clue of that I could be super good at, but I have no clue because I haven't put my heart and time into it. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I could be amazing at something else that I haven't even tapped into yet.
You still feel that
Oh
at
yeah.
your age?
Oh totally. so so I feel like if that's me, that's everybody else. You know,
So rad.
and I definitely, we're all different in the way that we look and our build and everything, and some people's like voices just sound better than others, and that's fine. That's okay. I'm okay with that. You know, do I wish I had a better voice? Yes. Do I wish that
Describe
I could
that.
be
Explain
better
that.
if I could sing better? Not necessarily, but it would make me happy, But I didn't get that, So I have to I have to be okay with that, you know.
Interesting.
I have to be okay.
As a man of faith, I mean, do you almost feel like you are like the conduit for God to share a message, God's and spread that message? I know that's quite a cliche
You
question,
know,
but do you feel that?
I feel like my life should be that message. What I try to do as a Christian is I try to incorporate that doctrine into my life and try to show it rather than kind of just preach it out, because the
Okay.
Word of God is going to fall deaf on people who don't care about it, So it's only to those that care and believe and trust that the Word of God is going to have some effect on your life. And I know that before I became a Christian, I didn't want the Word of God in my life. So it had no effect on me whatsoever.
Okay.
It wasn't until I got to the point where I said, I want that now. I feel like I need that now. But a lot of people who are stubborn and prideful have to come to that low point in their life to accept something greater than them, you know, a knowledge greater than them. And so
Mm.
I gave Christianity a chance in 2006. And I said to myself, okay, I've tried everything else. I was 41 years at the time. I've tried everything else in my life to make myself happy and fulfilled and understand who I am, where I came from, why I'm here, what's going on with the world, why do people act like this, and I try to figure it out on my own. And I came to a point in my life that I wanted to hear it. I wanted to find out something that I didn't know, and if it would benefit my life. And I said, if I find anything whack about Christianity, I'm out. I gave it a chance, And over the years, the only thing I have found whack about Christianity are Christians.
This is interesting. Why? Why?
Because
Why?
Christians aren't perfect and they're
Right.
they're wacky sometimes.
Yeah.
They make some crazy, statements. They interpret scripture their own way. Um, it's a very delicate thing. That's why there's a
Yeah.
lot of separation in the Christian faith. And I can see from the outside because I I wasn't born in the church, so I've been on the outside of that, looking in and wanting to have nothing to do with it. And I respect that because I want to be that Christian that doesn't push away a non-believer like the way I was pushed away. You know, even though even though the faith, the Word of God will push people away no matter what, depending where their heart is at. But I don't want to be that annoying Christian that is so completely judgmental, and then they say all these things and then they act a certain way. I would rather
Hmm.
act a certain way and not say all these things,
Interesting.
because we both know that words are cheap and actions are way more productive and more believable than just words. So if I'm preaching the gospel all the time, but I'm acting a certain way, then that's where a person can point the finger at me and be like, "Yeah, you say all this stuff, but you act like this."
Yeah.
So I'd rather be I think it's in scripture, but it just says that if anything else, then use words. But first, just be you know live out the gospel the best you can, and then if all else fails, then use words. And so I would rather be a man of that people can see a difference, or and I'm not perfect. Sometimes I fall back into the worldly ways, that I used to be, and it happens from time to time, and then I have to catch myself, and I have to just be like, okay, that's the old self. I need to like repent and get back on track. But it's so easy to fall back on the way that you were brought up, because that's just what you know, you know.
Yeah. It's funny. Over the years, I've found that when a Christian's vocal about their faith and their beliefs, it can be really polarizing. And I guess on your journey with it, have you found that it's actually polarized fans, polarized
Oh, I have to
fellow?
watch whatever I say all the time on social media. I mean, I posted a picture of me and Hawk, and my shirt says "Thank God for punk rock," right? And I'm posting about Tony's 55th birthday, and the only thing the person can comment on is my shirt, and they say like, "Thank God for punk rock." They're like, "That's like an oxymoron," you know. And I'm like, "No, not really." If anything, Jesus was probably the most punkest person that ever walked this earth. And the reason why I
Or
say that is because he went against all authority here, you know? And that's what punk rock's about. It's an attitude. It's about going against um, the status quo, and what's and doing things. And Jesus didn't do things his way. He did it his father's way, but it was different from the way the religious leaders and the Romans thought about life and treated people, and he went against all that, and that's why he got crucified. For his way of life, which was
mm,
more punk than anybody. He
I
went he
love
went
that.
against the establishment, and that's what the whole punk movement is about. And that's where the music comes on. And skateboarding the same way. It's like this whole establishment of like, you got to go to school, go to college, you got to graduate with a degree, and I didn't do that. I was successful just being a skateboarder. You know, and I brought
One
a
of
lot of
the
joy to people's lives being a skateboarder, and I've influenced a lot of people. Uh, to participate in skateboarding and to get them maybe out of trouble and to focus on a discipline that helped them succeed at something, which in turn helped them succeed at other things, which in turn helped me succeed in being a musician, being an artist, and everything else I put my heart into, you know.
Yeah.
Have I been successful at marriage? No, but that takes two people. You know, as a skateboarder,
You are.
as a skateboarder, I'm my own boss. You know, I don't need another person to help me become a great skateboarder.
Gotcha.
You know, musician, yeah, you need 4 or 5 other people in the band to become a great band, and that's another gamble as well. As an artist, you don't need anybody else to be a great artist. You just need yourself and your paintbrush. So anything, you know, that takes teamwork, it's difficult because you're relying on the other person to perform as well. And in a marriage, if the other person's not performing well, it doesn't matter how good you are, how good you try, it's going to fail. It's going to fail. So, you know, I've been through 2 failed marriages already, and it's because the other person didn't want to participate, didn't want to help the marriage succeed. And you I would rather be out of the marriage than I would be better out of a marriage being miserable, you know, in the marriage than be out of the marriage than not miserable.
Would you say those situations have been the most difficult of your life?
To keep together, of course. Yeah, that's why, you know, I'm not married.
What about post marriage breakdown?
Like relationships?
No, like the period of time post, I guess, divorce.
Afterwards.
Were these like dark times? Sorry to pry. The only reason I pry is because there's 2 reasons. One, I've experienced it myself, and 2, what I've learned over the years of doing this podcast is that those moments can be so detrimental to people. The relationship breakdowns. I think it leads to suicide, and it can lead in extreme examples, and also really poor mental health. And I'm just curious to hear your experience in those really dark times post relationship breakdown and marriage breakdown.
Well, suicide is from a lack of hope.
Okay.
Yeah. I believe that's why people commit suicide, don't want to live anymore, because they have no more hope. You know, in a godless society, there is no hope, you know, because there's nothing to hope for, you know, and so there's a lot of loneliness in that kind of society. It doesn't matter how rich and famous you are, you can still be very alone, you know, because people and things will fail you. People and things will fail you. God will never fail you. You know, if you trust in him and put your heart in him, the things that he says will be true and flourish if you follow and listen. But if you don't and steer off your own way, then that's when you're going to get disappointed. Things aren't going to meet your, you know, expectations. And that's where people get upset, frustrated, and they feel empty. You know, they're not getting fulfilled. And there's a lot of times where we try to fulfill our life with everything but God and a spiritual, you know, realization of who we really are and what we really need to be happy. And we grow up learning that this is going to make me happy. This is going to make, and when, as soon as it doesn't, you move on to the next thing, you know. And we're just, you know, chasing things. You're just chasing things.
Yeah.
And once you find God, you're not really chasing anything else anymore, you know.
Gotcha.
Just word.
Just word. How would you describe the fallout for your children in regards to separation from your wives?
Rephrase that.
How would you describe the impact on your children?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, it definitely has affected them in a way where they grew up in a broken home. And it's not a natural thing to be brought up in a broken home. I was brought up in a broken home, so I'm the result of that. but I was able to persevere through that because I found skateboarding and I found an outlet
Yeah.
that let me become the best I could at what skateboarding had to offer and what I could offer myself. So I was able to be successful in that, which brought fame and fortune, which brought money, which brought nice things. I got to see
Yeah.
the world. Uh, I've got to drive very comfortable cars. I've lived in great homes. I've had food on, the table. I've been able
Mm.
to provide for my family, two families that I've started. I've never been a deadbeat dad where I didn't provide for my kids or my wife. I was always there. But my work took me away from them, and a lot of people don't sign up for that. And I think that's what's been the hard thing for me is because I'm being pulled left and right with my sponsors of like, hey, I need you to go do this event. Hey, I need you to go do this event. Well, if I'm in a family, I'm away from them, but I'm out providing for them. And then when you're with a woman who sees that and she's not okay with that, then she looks at her own life and is like, oh, well, I'm just some normal person here sitting at home by myself taking care of kids. It's not a very glamorous thing, you know? Would I want to switch roles? Yeah, it'd be kind of cool. Yeah, go do what I do. Go travel and do what I do and put your life at risk every day. And then I'll sit home and take care of the kids for a week. you know, it's like, it's not easy. It looks fun. It looks great because I'm traveling and seeing all this. But do I want to do that all by myself? No. I mean, it's lonely sometimes. Would I want
Yeah.
my wife and kids there? Of course. But I'm not there for family vacation. I'm there to work, So mm, everybody wants something from you. I mean, especially the fans. Like, I feel sorry for very famous people because they don't have no time for themselves because the fans want something from them. And like when I've traveled with Hawk, man, he handles it very well. I mean, he's the most famous skateboarder in the world, and when I travel with him, there's people that approach him that I don't even know if they have any clue about skateboarding, but they recognize him and they just want a photo with him. They want a piece of him, and he doesn't have any quiet time for himself. So would I want to be that famous? I'm not sure if I would. I like how famous I am. I get it every once in a while. It's very appreciative, and I have a lot of gratitude when people recognize me here and there. And but to be overly famous where you can't even walk, a couple of feet without someone stopping you, I can see it being kind of annoying because you're on the job 24/7. You never stop working because you're giving your attention to somebody, a fan. So Hawk, whenever he wakes up to go to sleep, he's always has to give his attention to somebody, so that he's working 24, unless he's falling asleep.
See, you're super recognizable, for like maybe for your stature and your appearance. It's unique. It's easy to define.
Yeah.
And it's been such a long time. And I'm sure around, especially in California, is there a day that goes by when you go out in public when someone doesn't recognize you?
There has been times, yeah, but
But so
it depends where
most days you,
it depends where I'm at. You know, Obviously, if I'm like walking my dog on a trail and there's nobody on the trail, no one's going to recognize me.
okay. Here's a question: like when you go to the supermarket anywhere in California, do you get recognized every single time?
Last night I went to go get some candy for my kid. He wanted some candy, um, and someone recognized me in the grocery store. Yeah,
Okay,
last night.
right.
Yeah.
I mean, and at what point is it not fun anymore? Like,
Oh,
it's
it was fun talking to him.
still
It
fun.
was, everyone has an interesting story and they want to show, you know, their appreciation and how I've affected their life. And so, yeah, I think what's really astonishing and what's cool is not when an older person recognizes me when a person who's like 6 or 7 or 8,
Interesting.
a kid, when that person recognizes
Yeah.
who I am, I feel like, wow, that's amazing that I'm still able to affect a young person that, and they know who I am. So I feel like I'm still doing my job, or their parents are doing their job to educate them who I am or what I've done. Um, so that's more astonishing to me than some older gentleman or woman who's like followed my career over the years. I'm like, whoa, that okay. I'm still relevant in some way. Yeah.
In terms of fame booms, what was bigger? The fame boom of the Power Peralta Bones Brigade days, or the fame boom of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater?
Well, I think we're feeling the effects of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater now. Um, I think I was feeling the effects in the late '80s because of what I did in the early '80s. So, if anything, to answer your question, um, I'm super stoked and proud to be a skateboarder today and be recognized as one because of what we have now and how skateboarders are treated now. That's that's more enjoyable than like saying like, oh, it was better in the '80s when nobody liked it and nobody liked us and nobody cared. No, it's not. It wasn't better back then. It was fun. It was challenging, but it wasn't better. It's better now. I can go 4 minutes from my house and skate a public skateboard park for free. We didn't have
Amazing,
that in
eh?
1980. I had to build a ramp in my backyard because there was nowhere to skate.
Yeah,
If
for
anything, I had to
sure.
go find a ditch. I had to go find a curb. I had to go find an empty pool. I had to go find some guy's backyard ramp. There was nothing to skate where I lived. So anyone who complains that they have nothing to skate, then move
Don't complain. Or move. Or build it.
or build it. Build
Let's
it
fast.
yourself.
Let's fast forward. Let's fast forward then. Describe your emotions when you've seen the Olympics on the skateboarding in the Olympics on TV.
Um, it's amazing that we've gotten that far. But I kind of feel like we've had our own. See, that's the rad thing about skateboarding. It's always been DIY. So if we
Yeah.
couldn't go to the Olympics, we'd have our own Olympics. You know,
Yeah.
we have our own scene. We have our own countries competing against each other. So we've already had. We're not bringing anything new.
Excuse me, Steve. Sorry, mate.
No worries.
Excuse me.
We're not bringing anything new to the table. We've been doing the exact same thing that you see in the Olympics has been happening since 1980. Just the tricks are more difficult. There's more countries involved, but we're not doing anything different. People are
Yeah.
still expressing themselves the best way they can. They're still falling off their skateboard. you know, they're still chasing their board around. There's still guys that are making all their tricks. There's still guys that aren't making their tricks. There's more women involved with the sport. There's younger people involved in the sport. There's more countries involved in the sport. So, it's great that we're being recognized as a legit sport that people can participate in. And I enjoy it because it only adds to skateboarding. It only adds to the opportunity for skateboarders that we helped build over the years. There's always something growing, something new. And I think, like right now, okay, so I think back in the day when all the parks closed, I mean, we probably would have thought, man, how great would it be if there was another skateboard park around? And I never would have thought that there would be a skate, not more than, not even just one, but like plenty of skate parks in one city, and you can skate them for free. That's insane. And so now I think the thing that is missing that we haven't achieved yet is skateboarding going into the school system where now instead of like huge large soccer or football fields there's a skate park inside of a school and kids are doing that for recess or they're doing that for an activity and they're learning about there's classes for that, and so we haven't got that far. But I feel the Olympics could open up that door to like you go to a school and PE is skateboarding.
What's
For
happening?
BMX as well, or whatever you do, that I feel like if one school starts it, it's going to be like a chain effect. Like, oh my goodness, like that school has a skate park. Why don't we have a skate park? That
Yeah.
school has a pump track. Why don't we have a pump track? You know, it's here to stay. It's not going anywhere. BMX isn't going anywhere. Skateboarding's not going anywhere. Um, Rollerblade
It's all right.
went away. I'm sure scooter's going to go away as well. It was here for a while. It's gone. It,
You've seen those trends. You've
it,
seen those trends come and go
but
over the years,
skateboarding,
right?
it's such a creative sport, man. That, and I call it a sport because it is a sport. I call it a lifestyle because it is a lifestyle. I call it a mode of transportation because it's a mode of transportation. And when you try to put skateboarding in your own little box, and you're trying to control it and try to tell me or the society of what skateboarding is, yeah,
Mm.
that's what it is to you. But you don't not, the world doesn't revolve around you. So if I want
Yeah.
to call it a sport, I can call it a sport. I can call it whatever I want. To me, it's a sport. It might not be a
Is
sport
it
to you, but it doesn't mean it's not a
not
sport. So when
not
people
an
go out
art
and say
form?
like, well, Ian McKay tried to say like, skateboarding's not a sport. You know, I I love Ian. I love his music, but I don't agree with him. You know,
Okay.
I agree that if I make this a sport, it's a sport. We compete against each other. We train for it. Um, that's what sports do. It's
So
competitive. Whenever it's competitive, it's a sport.
okay. See, I'm going to sort of beg to differ a little bit. I see it as an art form because it has such a beautiful aesthetic to it. What I find interesting about you is that I've always seen you as someone who's quite fashionable. You've had mad style over the years, like what you wear and what you dress, like and the way you dress. Is that something you've always considered? Like, are
Oh,
you into fashion?
I was aware
So
of
how
it.
big?
I wanted to stand
How?
out, so I wanted to be different. So I tried my best to be different or look different than the skateboarder next to me. That's why back in the '80s we all had different shapes because we wanted our shape to be different than the other person. You know, I wore a lot of Batman T-shirts and Spider-Man, and I wore a lot of punk rock T-shirts because not very many people were wearing that stuff. And I wanted to stand out. Did I get a lot of crap from people standing out? Yeah, of course. I got crap from my own sponsors, like, why aren't you wearing our T-shirts, and why aren't you, promoting our products and stuff? And I would tell them because I'm not a billboard, and that's not my style, and I want to look different, and this is me. I'm still selling boards, so I don't need to
Mm,
wear your company T-shirt to sell your board.
yeah.
You know,
Yeah. How much time were you considering what you were wearing though? How much thought were you putting into that?
That's a cool Batman T-shirt. All right, that's how much thought.
Whatever you were feeling, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
You
great.
know,
That's a great Spider-Man shirt. That'll look cool in a photo. Okay. Oh,
did
that's
you ever
a
have
cool band shot.
did you ever have a manager over the
Never have
years?
had a manager. I've managed my whole life.
So you never had a manager saying, "Hey, wear this, wear that. You got to wear this."
No,
No,
I've had
you've
sponsors try
never.
to tell me what to wear, and I'm like, no, I'm not wearing that.
So
You got other team
interesting.
riders that do that. I don't want
So you've self-managed that whole
to.
time.
Yeah, but then there's a benefit of that, and there's not a benefit of that. I think there's a benefit of having a manager because he'll go out and get jobs for you that you would have no clue about or how to
Mm,
get. And I feel like that's a
mm.
manager's role is to get you things to work for you.
Do you do you think you missed opportunities?
Totally.
Do you ever look at Tony Hawk and think maybe that pro skater game could have been my pro skater game if I had a manager?
Um, you know, Not necessarily because he was at the right place at the right time, and he was number one X Games. And when someone's going to make a game, especially a video game that's going to be presented to the world, you probably want the best dude on the planet to represent you.
Yeah.
So I feel like he was the right man for the job. And but I got to go along on the ride for that, so I'm very appreciative of that. You know,
Interesting.
um, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I I heard in an interview you did, and it might have been on the Nine Club, and it really hit me, Steve. You said that it's very important to celebrate the success of others and the success of friends, and that really stuck with me.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of something that we naturally do anyways. Like let's say you're in a session and you're all skating and you see a guy working on a trick and he lands it after all these tries. Normal, the natural thing to do is to congratulate the person, not feel like bad that why couldn't that been me? Well, it wasn't you because you didn't work as hard as the guy that just did it. It's like Tuss. It's like Tuss Purpose. You know, he didn't give credit where credit was due. You know, he he tried to make it about himself. You know, he he didn't give credit to Hawk. It's like he made it sound like Hawk stole his fame and everything from him, which Hawk didn't. He just didn't put in the work like Hawk did. You know,
Yeah.
and if he did, he didn't try hard enough, or maybe he needed to try harder than Hawk to get there. And there was many people who were trying 900s before Hawk landed the 900. You know,
Yeah.
and Tuss was one of them. But instead of celebrating Tony's success, he made a documentary mocking him. And I even talked to Tuss personally about that. Even him when he is a Christian, I talked to him personally. I go, he's trying to tell me like Hawk owes him apology. I go, no, mate, you owe Hawk an apology for trying to like knock him down in your documentary. I go, your documentary could have been great. It could have been a story about you and your brother and how you let you and your brother let things come into your life that destroyed amazing things that could have happened for both of you. But then you turned it into something to give Hawk a bad name, and that's why I didn't enjoy the documentary as much as it could have because he made it about somebody else stealing something from him rather than hey, this is me and my brother's story and these are the bad choices we made and this is the end result of it and
Yeah.
we're sorry. Had nothing to do with Hawk. You know what I
Mm.
mean? It had nothing to do with Hawk, but he made it like that, and I personally said, hey, you don't even go there, bro. Like, don't even go there.
How do you manage forgiveness? Are you good at forgiving?
Sometimes. um, yeah, I'm pretty good at it. I feel like, but when I'm mad, I'm mad, and when I'm frustrated, I'm
I,
frustrated, and I just sometimes I just that's one part that yeah, God could help me be better at, you know, um, but I'm able to forgive and forget as just let time go a little bit and then let me just be me and then after a while I'll just be like okay I'm not mad anymore about it.
so you don't avoid it? You don't avoid it. You just let it go through a process.
I think it's a process for everybody. I think just a lot of people hold on to that unforgiveness because they want to, you know. I don't want to be unforgiving. I just at the moment you just have to like cool down. you
Yeah.
know?
What about when it's those deep resentments where someone's really harmed you? Like it could be an ex-wife, or it could be.
Um
I mean, I don't know.
I,
How do you approach those ones?
well, I mean, it's I learned a lot about forgiveness becoming a Christian. So um I learned that um I'm not perfect and the person who harmed me is not perfect and that I should never be mad or angry at somebody who have harmed me if I've done the same thing to somebody else.
Yes, sir.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
Because then that is hypocritical. Like
Thank you.
like if someone stole from me and I was super pissed at that, I have to look back at my life when I stole something from somebody else. That doesn't make me better than the person who stole from me. You know what I'm saying? So if
Yeah.
someone steals from me, yeah, I'm going to be mad. Can I forgive them? Yeah, whatever. I can forgive them. Am I any better than that person? No, because I've stolen things years ago when I was a kid, you know?
You-
So I'm no better than that person. You know, if someone cheats on me, is it gonna make me sad? Yeah, of course it's gonna make me sad. Have I cheated on other girlfriends in the past in the 80s? Yes, I've done that too. Does that make me better than the person that cheated on me? No, it doesn't. It makes me the same.
yeah.
So that's how I'm able to forgive quicker is when God says, don't point the finger at that person because you're the same as them.
It's funny, our mutual friend Sid Tapia broke it down for me so well. Because I sort of said to him, like, Christians are such hypocrites. And also, I was also talking about how I can't let go of resentments. And he said, well, who are you to judge? Like, are you the ambassador of perfection? Are you?
Mhm.
And he said, and then he related it because he's a strong man of faith, and he said, like, in regards to the churches, he's like, well, what do you expect? He said, churches are full of broken people.
Mhm.
Why would they be any different in church? They're just consciously trying to be better, and they're going to have issues.
Right.
So why do people always expect them to be perfect and then want to label them as hypocrites when really they just got the courage to address their bullshit? And it's like, wow, yeah, man. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. You know how some people can just word things so you understand it better?
No,
I was like, okay,
no,
cool.
I totally, and that's the beauty of the Holy Spirit and how He comes in and is able for us to decipher things that God says, and how we can be as individuals be creative enough to express those feelings. And I feel like God's given me a lot of wisdom to express His word through the way that I want to and the way that I feel that can help people understand. And yeah, there is a lot of hypocrisy in Christianity and religion, but there's also the same amount of hypocrisy outside the church. I was a
Yeah,
I was a hypocrite before I was a Christian. That's different. You know what I mean?
yeah. So who are you to judge, man? Who are we to judge?
I judged
Who are
people
we to
before.
judge?
I judged people before I was a Christian. People who are even don't even know God are judgmental,
Yeah.
and
I've been doing it.
they're acting like Christians, and they're not even Christian. That's,
I've
I'm
been doing it
kidding.
since
It's a
since back in the
protocol
day.
of like people of faith. Oh, you think you're or holier than art thou, and it's just like, no, I don't think I'm holier than you, but I do know something that you don't know, and I
Yes,
know
sir.
some. I know the Word of God. Do I always apply it to my life? Not always. I forget, and you know,
Yeah.
humans tend to forget, and the reason why we tend to forget is because we tend to not care. So whenever I forget something, it's because I didn't really care about remembering.
Okay.
I have to teach that.
That's a good.
Well, I try to teach that to my son. It's like, you can't use the word "I forgot" as an excuse because that just shows me that you don't care.
Yeah.
You know.
Wow, that's a good point. Because that was one of my questions. I wanted to ask you about your parenting journey. You're further down the line than me. Describe your parenting journey. Yeah. I don't know.
Well,
It's a big.
having a first child, I had a first child before I was a Christian, and discipline was a lot different than the discipline I have with my kids now. Um, I grew up in a spanking household, and I was spanked a lot as a kid. So when I had my first kid outside of the church and outside of Christianity, I spanked my daughter a lot when she got out of line. Uh, people always say like, well, when you discipline a kid, you shouldn't discipline them in anger. And I'm like, of course you're going to be angry. It pisses you off.
Yeah.
If a person pisses you off, you're going to want to punch them. Why? Because you're angry. If your kid pisses you off, you're going to probably want to swap them because you're mad. So, and when people say you should spank out of that, well, yeah, it's easier said than done, but it's a difficult thing to do. So, have I spanked my kid out of anger? Of course. I have. When I became a Christian years later, um, God put on my heart that spanking is not a healthy thing to do. for
Okay.
anybody or anyone.
Okay.
And so God had put that on my heart. So with my two kids, my first kid is 25. She came with the spanking discipline. My 13-year-old daughter and my 16-year-old son have never felt pain from this hand.
Okay.
I've never spanked them. I've never touched them in that way because God put that on my heart. God said, hey, that is not a form of discipline I want you to use on this new family that you're starting. And, so that really touched me. It really made me have to ask for forgiveness to my daughter. And I had to like approach her one day and said, I'm super sorry for ever laying a hand on you. I felt at that time that's all I knew as a parent. And even today, people argue in the church and they think that the rod of discipline is your hand. And I don't see anywhere in the Bible that explains that the rod is your hand. I feel the rod, if anything, is the word of God. And that is
Okay.
used for discipline, not harming somebody, not spanking somebody to get their attention, not causing pain to another human being. That is not a form of discipline.
Yeah. How did your adult daughter receive that apology?
She appreciates it.
Okay.
Is it something I wish I could take back? Of course. I wish I'd never laid a hand on my daughter like that.
Okay. It's funny you mentioned the spanking thing because I've never spanked my children. However, and that was driven by the fact that I had a physically abusive father.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably went too far.
Yep.
But what? But I don't haven't spanked them. But there's been occasions where I've raised my voice at them, and the look I've given them, I've scared them.
I've done that.
You know,
And they
and
do need a little bit of okay, they do need a little bit of healthy fear and respect. And see that was the thing that I had a problem with my ex-wife is she would tell me, the kids are afraid of you, and I go, well, they should be because they're not
okay,
afraid of you, and they walk all over you.
okay,
You know, there should be a little bit of healthy fear of like, hey, I don't want to disappoint my dad. I should
okay,
be afraid of disappointment. They're not afraid. I would say to my ex-wife, I'm like, they're not afraid to disappoint you. They're not even afraid to talk to you in a disrespectful manner. I mean, that's got to say something about the way that you parent, doesn't it?
mm. Yeah. I mean, I don't have an answer. It's something I think about a lot, actually. I
Well,
mean, now that I'm,
there's some people. I watch a lot of cop things, and there's a lot of people that don't respect cops or don't. They're not afraid of them. I've seen guys fighting cops. I would never ever put myself in a position to fight a cop. No, I don't care. They're the law, and if they feel like I'm breaking the law, then I need to listen and not try to have all this pride of like, oh, don't tell me what to do. Who are you to tell me
mm,
what to do? You know.
okay.
And
So you think,
so I've never gotten in trouble with the law. You know what I'm
interesting.
saying?
Really? Even when you were street cab
Yeah. Well,
in the
yeah,
street.
of course I've gotten kicked out of things, but I didn't try to
Yeah.
like argue with them. I never argued with
Yeah.
anybody because I knew that I wasn't in a place where it's yeah, I'm not supposed to be here. So okay, we'll leave.
Yeah.
We'll leave.
So you think a healthy respect is good?
I think a healthy respect is good. I think a little bit of fear of authority, I mean, aren't we supposed to fear
Healthy
God?
fear. Are we? I don't know.
I feel we are. I feel there's a healthy fear. If we don't,
Well, what do you fear of God then?
I fear that I'm not
Retribute.
going. The fear, not that He's going to punish me, but I fear Him out of respect.
Okay. I've always been curious. Christians always say that. Like, I only fear God. And I'm like, well, isn't God meant to love you? Like, again, I'm new to this aspect of,
Okay. Um,
yeah.
I fear Him in a healthy way, where it's a healthy fear out of respect, out of like if I don't abide to what He wants in my life, then there's going to be consequences. There's going to be consequences.
Okay.
He's telling me there's going to be consequences. And if I'm not afraid of those consequences of what he's saying to me, then I guess I'm not going to listen.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to
Yeah.
listen. What's going to take someone to listen? If there's no fear of being punished, of doing a crime, what's going to stop you from doing the crime?
Yeah, true. True. So that's laid out then in the Bible what the consequences are. Is that
Well,
correct?
if there's no fear of cheating on your girlfriend, what's going to cause you not to cheat?
Yeah, good point. Yeah, it's interesting.
Am I afraid of my girlfriend? No. I'm not afraid of her at all. But
Are you afraid of losing? Would you be afraid of losing her? Is that the point you want to make?
yeah, so I'm not going to go there. But if I wasn't afraid of losing her or cheating on her, I probably would cheat on her.
Okay.
But
Hmm.
I wouldn't cheat on her because I would break up with her before cheating on her.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even go there because it's not a very respectful thing to do to a person anyways, you know.
Yeah.
But
And
see,
that's not how you.
and that's the point I'm trying to prove, and sometimes I have to explain to her is there's no reason to be jealous, insecure of me doing anything behind your back because I wouldn't do that out of respect. And if there's a fear of that, then that means you don't trust me as a human being, and you think all your worrying is going to help me decide whether I want to do that or not? No, I'm going to do it regardless. If I feel selfish enough, I will do whatever I want, regardless how scared you are that I'm going to do it, and vice versa. So, like, if she's talking to a guy or friends with a guy or paying attention to some guy I don't know, there's kind of this fear factor of like, oh, am I going to lose this girl to this dude? Like, who is this dude? How does she know this guy? How long has she been friends with him? Like, that never goes through my mind because I have no control of their relationship. I have no control at all. And vice versa. She has no control with any female relationship I have with anybody. So all the nagging, all the worry, all the questioning, all the like annoying, you know, things just need to go away because that just pushes a person further and further away when you don't trust that person. And
So you're saying that nature change that you have, like would you say the change in your nature to not do that is the byproduct of aligning your life with a higher power?
well, of course, I meant, it's being held accountable for one, and also having the ability to feel convicted. Conviction. A healthy conviction is a good thing.
Love
So
that.
when people go to church and they feel convicted because of the Word of God and they're living a certain life, that conviction that they hear in church is something for um, to help guide and to help nurture a person's personality to the point where like God's showing you're not going down the right path. And if you're feeling guilty or convicted on the way that you're living and it's not aligning up with God, then that should be telling you something. That should be telling you you're not on the right path. And so you need to hear that healthy conviction to change your heart in order to change your personality and your ability to produce good fruit. you know. And so I love the conviction of God. I love God's conviction, because I love that what He does to your heart to make you, feel in a way feel bad about your actions and what you're doing. It's good to feel bad because then you're not doing something right.
Yes. Yeah. I think a lot of people live unconsciously, like myself included, and become complacent and just adapted to feeling like shit all the time. And I see it. I was saying this to Sid the other day. All the successful people that I respect and look up to
Mm,
align with the faith. It's just like
mm,
it's undeniable. So then I'm like, well, I kind of want what they have.
mm,
So what are they doing that's different? And the common denominator is some type of faith. It doesn't necessarily have to mean Christianity, but they do have a line with the kind of faith that's keeping them accountable.
And
And I
that's
really
it.
love that.
And that's it. And that's why fellowship is good. That's why Bible studies are good. That's why connecting with other, for me, connecting with other Christians. Because there's sometimes like, so, obviously I'm trying to make this transition, this conversion to become a better, more honest, more faithful person. But then this other person that I grew up is always there. It's really hard to sometimes get rid of it. So like, there'll be like memes or sometimes things, and I'll be like, I want to share this with some friends. But I'm like, I know I can't share that with my Christian friends because they won't think it's funny. You know what I mean? So sometimes I'll share some things with these people and I'll share some things with these people. I'm just being honest.
You're not putting that, but it's not like you've just completely put that side of you away. It's still there. Like,
It's still
is that what
there.
you're saying?
Do I want to remove profanity out of my vocabulary? Of course I do. Um, have I let it come back into my life sometimes? Of course I have. Is it right? No, it's not right. Does it feel good? Sometimes it does feel good. Sometimes it does feel good to throw an F-bomb out. Is it right? No, it's not. It's completely
Fair enough.
wrong and it's uncalled for, but that's just part of the old self, like being like, man, but it just feels good
Speaking of the old
to
self, I want to
blurt
change
that
direct.
out. you know, when you're trying to get your point across, sometimes, man, when you're so angry, and
Well,
and
that's
that's the problem with anger. Anger causes you to sin and causes you to say things you probably regret later.
that's something I've been battling with myself. I mean, I use profanity all the time, and then with the podcast, I use it all the time, and then it's only recently I've started to really reflect on it. And I'm like, my mother listens to it sometimes, and
Yeah.
she's kind of like, "Oh, why do you have to say that?" And then, but then also like this for me, this project that I've been doing now for like 4 years is
Yeah.
it's something I want to give to my children so that, when they become adults, they
Hmm.
can learn from the people that I speak to as well. Like I get a lot of really good messages through this podcast,
Yeah. I
and
mean,
then I'm
I
like, well,
I don't normally speak with profanity, but when I get angry, sometimes it comes out. So I've gotten to that point where it's not part of my vocabulary, and
mm,
but if I'm a happy camper, the F bomb will never come out of my mouth. Just to be cool. I won't say it to be cool. You know what I mean? Or to think like I'm an adult or whatnot. But when I'm pissed, super pissed off, it comes out. Am I proud of that? No, I'm not proud of it. But see, I've gotten to a point in my life where it's like it's not part of my vocabulary, but it's still lingering there. That I would love to get rid of that. I would
yeah.
love to not go there, and that's something I'm working on. Still to this day. And being in a relationship, sometimes women don't make me very happy. You know,
You've mentioned this a few times now. I mean,
I'm just being honest.
thank you. And you have brought up the difficulty with relationships a few times, which again, myself included. I'm divorced of 3 years ago,
Yeah,
and I'm at this point where I'm like, okay, it's official. I'm 46 years old, and relationships. I can't make relationships work. What am I doing wrong?
it takes two. And I feel like this is I feel like this is why a lot of relationships don't work is because a lot of people are bringing baggage from one relationship into the other. And so when people are bringing these baggage into this new relationship, they're just dealing with the same situations they dealt with in their last relationship, and they think like, I'll get in this other thing, things will be better. Well, no, you got to fix yourself first before you can even start a relationship. And I think that's why I became a Christian in the first place, is because I felt like I wasn't in a good place, And I felt like I wanted to be in a better place and be a better person and be a better boyfriend and be a better husband and be a better father. And I need to know who God is to make me a better person. And then I can start a relationship having those qualities and have a healthier relationship. But if I don't fix myself first and I'm still dealing with issues from past relationships, then I'm just going to affect the other person coming into my life that doesn't know me, you know? So, and I feel like that when after getting divorced, which same about, 3 years ago, getting into relationships, it's funny because the older I get, the quicker I see the red flags. And when I see these red flags, I run for the hills. Like, I don't care. I run because if I see the red flags and then I grab these flags and I wave them in front of the other person and go like, hey, see these flags? I don't like them. And if you don't get rid of these flags, I'm out. And so when I present that to them, they either get angry that I'm showing them these flags, or they're like, oh, I understand. These are things I need to work on. It isn't until this new relationship that I've been in that I've shown these red flags to this person, and she's recognized them rather than be in denial of them. And I've been in a few relationships before that I showed the red flags, and they're like, nah, those aren't mine. And I'd be like, okay, bye-bye. You're not worth it. Your beauty's not worth it. Your attention's not worth it. I want to be happy, not miserable. And I don't want your drama in my life.
So you wouldn't suffer red flags for the sake of not being lonely?
I have a lack of, the older I get more lack of patience for red flags. Like, I'm not willing to deal with the red flags if those issues aren't going to be fixed, because if they're not fixed within the first 6 months, you're going to go a year, 2 years, 3 years with the same stuff, and you're going to break up anyways. So you just wasted all that time with a person that you're trying to change that doesn't want to change, and vice versa. They're trying to change you. You're not going to change. So if they see red flags and they say, hey, Cab, look, I see these red flags in you. Are you willing to change or not? And if I'm not willing to change, they need to leave, because I'm going to be hurting them at the end of the day.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, how do you approach when your red flags are waved in your face?
Well,
Are you willing to change?
I have to acknowledge if that person means more to me than my red flags, they're going to stay. If my red flags are something I don't want to give up, then I would want them to go away, because I don't want to hurt them later on.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I don't want to hurt them.
This is what you've learned over time.
Yeah.
And experience.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if I care about that person enough, I will give up that red flag that's a red flag to them.
Okay.
For them.
It's a tough one, man. I think about it a lot, actually.
Well, I mean, those red flags. So like if she's waving a red flag, then I could show my other friends, hey, this person's waving this red flag. Is that really me? Do I do that? And if they confirm, yes, that is you, Cab, then I have to make the decision of being like, oh my goodness, something's being presented to me that I didn't know about. And I trust this person I'm confiding in. And I do confide in a lot of Christians. Like, if anything, in relationships, I'll confide more in a Christian than a non-Christian, because of their belief system and their respect for women, and the way that God tells us how to treat women. I feel like they have a fair view of what to look out for. And I'll sometimes I'll be like, is this yay or nay, or is this like, am I tripping out? And so I do get a lot of counsel outside of my relationship, but it won't be with somebody. Like, I would never get counseling on relationships from a single dude. You know what I mean?
Fair enough.
I wouldn't get marriage counseling for a person that wasn't married, or I wouldn't get kid counseling from a person who's never had a kid. I would get counseling for a person that is in it, has the experience, and be like, okay, they're very successful at that.
So I always wonder how much tolerance should I have for the red flags?
Uh,
Because I do believe tolerance is required. But you're kind of saying like if they're not willing to acknowledge, then there's no tolerance.
there's no tolerance. There's no tolerance. Not
Okay.
willing to acknowledge a thing that's toxic, that it's a toxic to both of you. I'll give up that cute girlfriend or famous girlfriend or beautiful woman. It's not worth it because that all wears off after time. You know,
Yeah.
the beauty, the attention, you know, whatever that person's successful at, that's all going to wear off. The attitude is what's the most important thing, what's in the heart. So, and that kind of goes with what God sees your heart. It doesn't look on the outside of you, your outer appearance. He focused on your heart and what's inside you.
Yeah.
Mankind focuses on the outside. They judge you from the outside. God
Mm,
judges you from the inside. He knows your heart. People don't know your heart. They only know your heart
they
if you
don't.
express it to them. So that's why we say you don't know anybody. You don't know anybody. You don't know your own parents. You don't know your brothers and sisters. You don't even know your own kids because they're in control. They're only going to allow you to know as much as they want you to know. You don't know your ex-girlfriend. You don't know the girlfriend that you're with now. You don't know your own wife because their secrets are their secrets. Your parents' secrets are your parents' secrets. And you don't really know anybody unless that person will allow you to know them completely.
Wow. Yeah, I just want to ask you one more question about this before we move on. Is like, so given that what you just said, does that mean you would be okay with loneliness or being alone in this
No,
in this stage in your life?
no, I'll keep trying.
Okay.
I'll keep trying. You know, um, I don't think God wants people to be alone. I think God wants us to have a companion, have a friend, someone we can confide in, and someone that we could be in love with the way that He's created love to be. Is it okay to be alone for a while? Yeah, of course, because you have to figure your own self out, you know? Um,
Yeah.
but I feel like I would rather be away from a relationship if it's a toxic one. There's no reason to have that togetherness if it's not healthy. I'd rather be alone. I've
Okay.
already told my girlfriend now, I'd rather be alone, If the things that we can't fix aren't fixable, um, I'd rather be alone and be happy than miserable.
Yeah.
You know,
That that that
I
was a
was in a
conundrum.
I was in my marriage for 12 years. Was it miserable? Of course, completely miserable. Was I in it for the long haul? Yes. I made an oath to God that, to death do us part, but she's the one that wanted the divorce. So I gave it to her, you know. Um, is that what God wanted for us? No. But I felt like, I'd rather find someone else that's equally yoked and be happy. And just because someone says they're a Christian doesn't mean they act like one,
Yeah.
you
Okay.
know.
Yeah.
And so that is not this the that does not seal the deal with me. You
Okay.
know, I married a
So you.
non. I was a non-Christian. I married a non-Christian. It didn't work. I became a Christian, married a Christian. It didn't work. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. Yeah.
So it's not about being a Christian or not being a Christian for something to work.
Okay.
But you have to be
It,
equally yoked as far as
what is yoked? What do you mean by yoked again?
equally
What does that
yoked
mean?
means you have to be on the same page.
Okay.
you know. And if we're not on the same page in parenting, it ain't going to work. If we're not on the same page financially, it's not going to work. If we're not on the same page of relational, it's not going to work. If we're not on the same page politically, it's not going to work. If we're not
Yeah.
on the same page, spiritually, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
Because in the end, it's going to become a divider between us, And so, um, I thought I was equally yoked because I married a Christian woman, and it just didn't
Interesting.
work out.
It's interesting. So you think just last thing is like a willingness. There needs to be a willingness to work through it. Because when you said that stuff about your marriage, that's exactly how I felt. And ironically, that was the duration of my marriage as well. And yeah, not happy, but I felt like I signed a contract, and I was willing to maintain my part of that contract.
Yeah,
And I think it really, and I
I
did
felt
still believe that through work
yeah,
and perseverance and willingness on both sides,
on both sides.
it could, okay,
It could work.
that
And when I
that's the
gave,
take home message.
yeah, and when I gave opportunities to make it work, counseling, parenting, um, and the other person doesn't want to participate. I mean, what else can you do?
Yeah,
And if I'm looking out for my financial, I'm going to bring it up. Hey, this is not working out financially. You're spending way more money than coming in. You know, that as a head of the household and the father figure, I'm supposed to be in control of that. Because in a Christian home, the father is the head. Okay, I'm sorry that sounds sexist, but in a Christian home, it's God, then it's the husband, the wife, and the kids, and then it's in that order. And the kids don't become the head, the wife does not become the head, the father's the head, and the father follows the father. And if the father's not following the father who is in heaven, then the wife doesn't really need to respect, you know,
yeah.
doesn't need to respect
Mm,
the husband because he's not acting accordingly. But I wasn't acting accordingly. For me, what was causing division was I was complaining about finances because I was trying to
okay.
protect our family from going bankrupt, you know, and that's my role to protect my family. And if someone in the family is destroying that part of the family, I need to speak up, right? And if I speak up and that person doesn't like it, that's too bad. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
That's too bad that you don't respect um, the person who is the provider to make a decision for you. You know.
Mm. What if the woman's the sole financial provider of a family? Just to
Well,
play devil's advocate a
okay,
little
if
bit.
she's a provider and she's really well with money and she's providing for the family and she's stable and not spending more than she's making, then yes, you're great. But if the provider is the one that's their own demise, and the person that doesn't make any money knows how to manage and control your finances, you know.
Hmm.
I
Yeah,
mean,
I guess
she,
that.
she would always like my ex-wife would always tell me, you treat this family like a business. I'm like, well, yeah, it kind of is a business because if it doesn't go right, we're going to go out of business and we're not going to be a family anymore. You know what I mean?
Okay.
You're you're
Yes.
you're 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 ruining the machine that's making it work by
Do you,
um um very gluttony with and not respecting you know the ability to have a bank account. you know
mm,
I cannot let another person destroy what I've created.
understand.
you know
Do you think, in your opinion, that these more clearly defined roles in a relationship and in a family are, well, there's a lack of it. I think gender roles in a family unit or a relationship unit are less defined than they've ever been in our current social climate. So do you feel that maybe more defined roles is necessary for success? Is that what you're sort of alluding to?
It depends on what kind of life you want to live.
Yeah.
Obviously, if both of you work and you don't want to start a family and you don't have the responsibility of kids, then yeah, I mean, whatever, you know. But if there's a point where there's a man and a woman want to start a family, which God created, that's how we keep surviving, is we keep multiplying. If no one's having babies anymore, the we're gonna we're all gonna go away.
Yes,
So
sir.
there's still gonna be, people creating other human beings. And so if you pick that as something that you want in your life, then there has to be a role that you play. Unless you want to start a family, but have your kids raised by someone else, not you. You know
Mm.
what I'm saying? Because you're so busy working for, I don't know what, a better house, more, better cars, more material things. You know what I mean? Like, so, you're not happy with the 1 bedroom house, you want a 2 bedroom house. No, you're not happy with the 2 bedroom house, you want a 5 bedroom house. You're not happy with the house in the hills, you want a house on the beach. You don't want 2 cars, you want 3 cars. No, you don't want a $10,000 car, you want a $30,000 car. So there's a lot of variables of how you want to live. Well, then
Mm.
there's a lot of responsibility for all those expensive things. And if you want that, something's going to last. Okay, maybe the
Yeah.
husband and the wife have to work to have that house that they always wanted. Or if you don't want that or care about that, then maybe only one person works. But if you want to start a family, I feel like that's how families work, is where, the man was the provider, the woman started the family. She took care of the house, took care of the kids. It's very old school, which it worked. It worked better.
Mm.
But some women don't want to play that role, which is fine. They don't have to. You don't have to have kids if you don't want to. You don't have to, start a family. Um, if you make enough money, I guess you can have a house cleaner clean your house. You know,
It's true.
if you don't want to do your own gardening of your own home, then hire somebody else. We
Mm.
have the ability to do those. We have those convenience. If you don't want to cook, pay for someone else to cook for you. And if you don't want to go pick it up, pay someone to drive it to you. I mean, we have those conveniences now, but that costs money. And the more money you spend, the more money you have to make. Because then you have the IRS in the picture, and they're also a person that's taking from you too, you know? And depending on what
Mm.
bracket you're in, they're going to take more money away from you,
Mm.
you know?
It's
So,
very interesting.
yeah. So the more money you make doesn't mean the more money you get to keep. Like, you still got to, I pay thousands and thousands of dollars to the IRS. Thousands.
Same here. Same here.
Okay. And I don't pay as much as someone else, but then I pay more than someone else. It's all, it depends on,
Mm.
some people like try to cheat the system where they try to find every kind of write off they can. And I'm going to say this receipt, I'm going to say this receipt, I'm going to try to work the system where I don't have to pay so much. You know,
Yeah.
the government does it, corporate people do it, you know.
Mm.
I mean, it's,
Yeah, like I guess like what you're talking about is old school values, and there'll be people that will oppose that given the change in like the social and political climate and being politically correct and equity and equality issues that come up, especially around I guess the varying the change in gender roles in our society. But I guess for me, what always sticks out is you just have to look at the statistics on marriage breakdown, and it's done nothing but increase, increase, increase. And so I just think it is good to reflect on the part, like reflect on how things were done in the past, and was it working, was it not working? I don't know.
well, I think if, like, for yourself, if you're going to venture off into a new relationship, you got to kind of also check yourself and see where you fell short in that relationship and what you could do better to change yourself so you don't do what you did to your wife that caused that, and vice versa, that you don't end up getting together with the same type of person, you know,
Yeah.
because you may be attracted to that same person that you hate or you don't want to be around.
Well,
Yeah.
it's familiar. That's the thing. That's, I think, where the cycle happens. It's familiar. And so in the early days, it's like, oh, this is familiar. This must be safe. And I think that's when the real growth happens, right? And that's why, I've really attempted to maintain this time of being single, so I can really understand what I need and who I am. I think when you're in a long-term relationship, you seem to, for me personally, I lost my identity a little bit, and I had to go through this process of understanding who I was and what I actually needed and wanted. And I've come to the conclusion that if I want the best, I have to be the best. And I think that's the trajectory I'm personally on right now. So
I think if you want to find your identity, I think we definitely find our identity in God. That's the best place to find our identity. It ain't going to
okay,
be in society because we can, you know, your identity and your personality are, I think, are kind of two different things. You know,
okay,
you know,
okay,
because I identify myself as a skateboarder when I pick up my skateboard. I identify
yes,
myself as a musician when I pick up, you know, a guitar. Identify myself as an artist when I pick up a brush. You know, um, so that's different than your person. My personality never changes in all those things, but my
yeah,
identity changes all the time.
yes,
But I definitely will tell you
interesting.
that I'm not gonna become a woman anytime soon.
You're not going to become a woman,
No,
okay?
because I don't feel like that.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's fine. Me either.
I,
That's
I
okay.
don't feel like it, and I'm happy the way I was created. I'm secure in my body.
That seems you've sort of raised that. Is that contentious for you? That issue
It's
in
no,
our
but it's
society,
around us all over the place.
it is. Yeah,
Yeah, and so it's confusing. It sounds unloving, but no, it's the truth. It's like I believe that there's two genders, and that's it. And
yeah,
I'm okay. I have the freedom to believe that, and I'm not wrong for
yes, you
believing
do.
that. You know?
Yeah, yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it does open up the debate of how is that impacting on our next generation coming through. That's something that worries
It
me as having young children myself.
it affected my
In
daughter for a while.
in what way?
She was struggling with it too because of her friends that she was hanging out with, and so she was trying to um, she was dealing with a little bit of that as well. So it definitely when it's around, it affects people. So there's huge
You think
influence. So it's
like
it's definitely an
affect her
issue.
in?
It's definitely an issue.
So she was questioning it. She
She was
was questioning
questioning it.
hers.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah,
yeah, and I don't think she does anymore. But it was a phase in her life for a while, and which is it's out there. So it's definitely something that's being addressed. It's the same with like you know males who are or who are competing in female sports now. Because they feel like they want to become a female, but then again they were born a male. You know,
yeah,
so there's a huge
yeah.
issue of that. And
You know what annoys me the most about it? I just feel like it gets too much energy that we're having these debates about gender identity and gender politics when we should be focusing our attention on poverty and environmental issues. That's where I get the shits with it. I'm just like, whatever. Just that's why we're giving this so much energy. I'd rather see that energy and that time and that money and that debate going towards issues around equality, domestic violence, war.
yeah.
I don't know. That's where it hurts me personally.
Well, there's a lot of sin in the world, so it's going to continue.
These are, these are big conversations that we could go
Oh,
off on so many.
well, I
But
have five
um,
percent on my
Oh no, I'm going quickly. I got a couple of questions from some friends that I just got to ask. So a couple of good friends of mine, Jeremy Rolling and Darren Caney. One of the questions I want to ask you, if you've only got 5% battery left, is they want to know what were some of the bigger royalty checks you've had in your career? Was it like your Dragon board graphics in the 80s, or was it maybe royalty checks from half cabs
It
sales?
was both. It
Both?
was both.
Yeah.
80s was definitely board sales. Um,
Yeah.
90s was Tony Hawk Pro Skater royalties, and
Yeah.
in the 2000s have definitely been half cabs.
Yeah. In the 2000s, isn't that interesting? Yeah.
Last year I got my biggest royalty check ever from Vans.
What?
Yeah,
All these years later, Steve. Get out.
last last
Congratulations.
year. Thanks. Yeah. Well, last year was a huge year for me. It was my 30-year anniversary, so they did a lot of collaborations, and they did a lot of special limited editions, and so the shoe sold really well.
Do you feel like that shoe has just got a life of its own now?
It does, and I'm proud of that. And hopefully, when I'm gone, that it continues to produce and be beneficial for my family when I'm long gone.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, do you ever just sit back and wonder why did that shoe pop off so much?
Uh,
Do you ever ask yourself that question?
no, not really. I mean, I don't really question anything. I just let it kind of go with the flow of things, and it is what it is. And I just think you know, the idea was a good idea back in the day, and so I'm just happy that fans went for it.
Yeah.
They went for it, and this I didn't design the shoe. Skaters designed that shoe. I just went with it.
Yeah, maybe that's
I
why.
just went with it. I went with the trend. So sometimes things that are trendy aren't always a bad thing.
Okay, no, God no.
Yeah.
I've wore that shoe for 20 plus years, man. I still wear it. I still skate in it,
Oh,
especially with the Pro Cush.
yep.
I love that, especially now I'm older. I love that.
Yeah.
Another quick question is, well, I'm really curious about your favorite modern skater these days. Who's a pro skater that you really love
Well, I was just
in the
who I
in the modern
love.
era?
Well, I was watching Nigel Houston's um, video part, and just blew me away. The
Yeah,
dedication, the hard work that guy put into that part is simply amazing. And after I watched that part, I'm like, that dude probably has to be the gnarliest street skater I've ever seen in my life.
yeah,
He's taken the
yeah.
gnarliest falls, and he's done the craziest rails. It's just incredible. He's put a lot of work into it, and it
Yeah.
shows. And he produced a beautiful part.
It really is.
Yeah.
Have you seen the extra? He's just dropped the rough cuts and
Yep.
the extras.
That's
I
the part
actually
I
enjoy
watched. I
that
didn't even
more.
watch the normal part. I watched that part.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I have three
The
percent, so if I
process.
go away, it's because my
It's all right, man. I'm going to milk it to the very end, Steve. This is a. But yeah, his process to watch that, it was just insane.
yeah,
The slams too that you don't see on the actual video part.
yeah. He's amazing.
Yeah, so good. Well, listen, it's been epic. It's been a long conversation. Really quickly, I ask all guests to come to the podcast with a cause they want to support or
Yeah,
advocate for. So you just want to briefly mention the one that you'd like to raise
yeah.
awareness
I
for
like
today?
to raise awareness for boarding for breast cancer. It's one of the
Yeah,
very first organizations that I help participate in and benefit, and it's for women with breast cancer. So I definitely would love to put a shout out for that organization and all they've done for women who have to deal with that, and just
yes, sir.
cancer itself. Grind for Life is another one
Yeah,
that
grind for life.
Mike
Okay,
Rogers started that tries to help people
okay.
deal with cancer. And yeah,
Epic. So I'll put a link to those organizations in this episode's show notes. So scroll down, click on it, see how you can donate or be involved. It's always a good thing to give your time and your money that way. So
yeah.
thank you, sir.
Thank you. I'm glad we finally
What a
got to hook up and chat.
yes, Mr. Steve Caballero, everybody. You.
Thank you.